printing it as is.
Yeah.
Little dog of a bear.
Yeah, I need that. No, you gotta blow it up.
To the moon.
All right. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, April 10th, 2023. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkin.
Here.
Mr. Brado. Here. Mr. Olgiati.
Here.
Mrs. Rose.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. Witt. Here. Mr. Verkast.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting minutes of March 27, 2023, and approval of the bills in the amount of $890,557.31. Be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is approval of the regular agenda. I'm not aware of any modifications, so if there are none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is announcements. A few announcements. A reminder, our waste hauler, GFL Environmental Services, will chip properly prepared brush at the curb or road right-of-way on your regular collection day. Residents will be required to place trimmed brush and branches at the curb or road right-of-way. Please place the butt ends toward the street, neatly stacked, with branches not exceeding 2 to 3 inches in diameter or 12 feet in length. This chipping service is done on a monthly basis in the first full week of each month. The Harrison Township Public Library recently extended its hours. The new hours, which started April 3rd, are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. With these new hours, the library has added an additional 19 hours of operation. The Harrison Township Public Library will now be open earlier for visiting seniors, later for working families, and have more consistent hours that are easier for everyone to remember. For more information, you can contact our library director, Melissa Goines, at 329-1261, or the Community Relations Manager, Kayla Dimmick, at the same number, 586-329-1261. Our waterfront park and pavilion is officially open for the season. The park hours are 8 a.m. to dusk. If you are interested in reserving or renting the pavilion, you can visit the township calendar to see available dates and contact the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. And for more information on any of these as well as other township events, you can always call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Harrison TWPMI. Are there any other announcements?
Yes, I have one announcement, Mr. Supervisor.
Yep.
I wanted to let everybody know that we will be having our business owners of Harrison Township meeting again at Gowney Golf Course on Thursday, April 27th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. You are allowed to bring 3 guests. You need to register. Either you can get the information on the website, the Harrison Township website. It'll be on there, or you can contact anybody from the board. We will have some guest speakers that evening. We'll be having representation from the fire department, building department, and the supervisor's office. So there's a good opportunity to get some questions, many questions that need to be answered that evening. So it's a good event just to kind of get together and fellowship with your fellow business owners and try to make Harrison Township the best place to do business as we can.
All right, sounds good. Any other announcements?
I just have a question. Do you know off the top of your head, the date for the cleanup? beautification.
I think it's April 22nd.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, and I had that in
April
the,
twenty-second from.
you're right, and I
9
had that
a.m.
in
to
last
noon.
announcements, and it wasn't in this one.
Earth Day.
Correct.
Yep, Earth Day. Or,
And they meet at the Mariners Point Shopping Plaza.
yeah, I don't have the latest, I don't have a specific agenda, but yeah, it's April 22nd.
That's the date. right?
Yeah, it's, I was gonna say we usually meet like 9 a.m., something like that.
9.
Yep, so,
I see it's on the homepage.
it is, okay, all right.
I do have one more announcement from the Parks and Rec Department. It's time to rev up your engines because we're having another road rally on May 20th. The information will be posted on the website this week, probably in the next day or two, and the banner you'll see up by McDonald's. So make sure you register because it usually does sell out. It's just $10 a person, and it's a fun evening of solving puzzles and spending time with your friends. And then there's always good opportunity at the final destination to buy some adult beverages and some food and just hang out.
All right, sounds good. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move forward on our agenda to item D1 regarding a beautification commission reappointments. There are several existing members of the Beautification Commission that have agreed to be reappointed. Carol Wolf, Ramona Romero, Herb Lorenz, Jim Keene, and Sue Keene. All 5 of these residents have served the commission and our township well, and I recommend their reappointment to the Beautification Commission for 2-year terms to expire April 10, 2025.
I'll make,
Go ahead, Larry.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Support.
all right, got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Witt. Any discussion?
Can we make it longer?
Well, we're certainly happy to have them for the duration we've had, and all of them have served for a fair number of time, but right now it's just 2 years, but we're certainly glad to have their help.
And these are just strictly volunteers, right?
That's it,
Making the township look great.
absolutely. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next, item D2, our Waste Service Hardship Committee reappointments, specifically Patricia Carrier and Bob Long have agreed to be reappointed. They've been serving the committee faithfully and successfully. We're looking at a 2-year term to expire April 10, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Brado with support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next is ordinance officer appointments. We have received a request from Lake St. Clair Metro Park to appoint ordinance officers for the season. These appointments allow the individuals to ticket for township ordinance infractions within the boundary of the park. We are recommending to reappoint Mr. Donald Hibbert and Ms. Gina Casolino and appoint Mr. Austin Barnett as ordinance officers for Lake St. Clair Metro Park with terms to expire May 21st, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. This is something we've done in the past. They don't have any enforcement unless we basically grant that to them, so nothing new.
And they are Lake St. Clair Metro Park employees?
That's
Yes.
correct. Yep,
Okay.
yep. So their ability to issue infractions, tickets and things like that.
Metro Parks literally, they send us a list of who they're doing and we appoint them.
Okay, good, all right.
So, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item E1, at our February 13th, 2023 regular board meeting, this board authorized the supervisor's office to post, advertise, and interview for a maintenance worker position for the water and sewer department. This is a position that is open because we recently had a retirement. The supervisor, clerk, treasurer, our public services director, and our water and sewer superintendent interviewed several applicants. The final decision regarding which applicant to hire was not made when the agenda item was prepared, but the individual would be identified. In fact, I did give everybody a copy of, the resume for Mr. Jack Miller. He was the unanimous decision amongst the committee that did the interviews. It is a 90 working day probationary period. So as I've said before, although we do our best in the interview, it's really, you know, when somebody's actually on the job is when you find out how they do. The starting salary is $46,969.91, which is the equivalent of $22.58 per hour, plus benefits, and the position is subject to a physical, a drug test, and a 90-day probationary period, as I mentioned. So the recommendation would be to hire Mr. Jack Miller to fill the position of maintenance worker in the Water and Sewer Department, subject to a physical, drug test, and 90-day probationary period, as recommended by the interview committee, with a starting salary of $46,969.91, which is $22.58 per hour, plus benefits.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support the motion.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Olgiati. Fine young gentleman, but again, it's really the probationary period that tells us this is one of those positions where sometimes prior to the termination or the end of the probation, we kind of say, hey, this is working out or it isn't working out, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Next on the agenda is items F1 and F2 from the Treasurer's Office. Mr. Tamanello.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Board, as required by Public Act 20, I am hereby presenting my 2022 Annual Treasurer's Report. I'd like to go through it if it's your pleasure, just sort of hit on some of the highlights. Of course, stop me if you have any questions. So basically, in number one, we list the several financial institutions that the Treasurer's Office deals with. These are for regular bank accounts, for investment bank accounts, and other accounts that we use on a daily basis. The process of life, let's talk about investments. The Treasurer reviews our fund balances. I work with the accounting director to determine which funds need to be or can be invested. We conduct research on financial institutions, and we invest accordingly based on the market. Other than our high deal account, we do have everything. All the other accounts are basically tied to regular township accounts, and we are actively investing around $6,400 in investments, and I believe that's detailed in the quarterly report.
Is that right? 6,400?
64 million, I'm sorry. 6.4 million.
All right.
So this year, what we did is we opened up investments for the library. So I broke that down for you this year. So Harrison Township Investments, you can see we're investing around $5,290,000. Over the course of the year, we raised around $75,000 in interest. For the Harrison Township Library, they didn't start till around August. Right now, we have about $1.2 million invested. Their interest is pretty low because many of those investments invested in August didn't mature till the end of the year or actually the beginning of 2023. So although we did make some interest, it's going to be more, of course, next year, but right around $1,900. Going on to taxes levied, this is, if you look at your report, this is a breakdown of the different taxes levied and all the different tax entities. Basic tax levied were $42,717,234. And again, I highlighted general operations. As you all know, we do not collect for general operations at the township. Again, this year, I updated our special assessment districts, tied to our balances in our special assessment. We paid $2,938,717. We paid off for our special assessment roll. And, we still have, sorry, I can't read this here.
Looks like about,
Outstanding balance is $1 million is what we owe back to the SAD fund, actually the general fund that's tied to, special assessments. There was a separate special assessment we did this year, and this is probably gonna be the way we're going to, look at special assessments going forward. We actually bonded, so if you look under, it says Special Assessment District Summary and Balances, bonded. This was for the Venice Shores paving, and it shows you the, total assessment from the roll, and basically the interest paid and the cash balance, which is $659,213. So at the end of 2022, the SAD burden for the general fund was still $1,007,000. At the end of 2021, the burden was $1,323,000. So we paid $315 towards the SAD burden, which is blend of both principal and interest. And this will continue through the year 2030 before all the SAD loans taken from the general fund will be repaid. Going on to number 4, bank fund balances and fees. Right now, this is less the investment fund. We have a total revolving amount of $11,122. That was a point in time at the end of December. It's a little greater right now today, but this was a snapshot at the end of December.
It's
$11,122,099. Bank fees are a big cost of doing business. And bank fees, which are tied to bank fees, are, things like account services, lock boxes, depository services, reconciliation services, they're all listed here. One thing I want to point out here at the bottom, if you remember in 2020, because we don't make a lot of interest on our accounts, but we make earned credit allowance. So basically what happens is by having our accounts, by having 11 million in the bank, or a little bit more than 11 million, we get credit allowances. In 2020, when interest rates were very low, our earned credit allowance did not cover the cost of our banking fees. And so basically, there was an offset of $45,241 that we had to pay at the end of the year. Subsequently, in 2021, we had to do the same thing. We owed $60,154. And what happened in 2022, if you look at the earned credit allowance, was $79,320, and our bank fees paid was $78,660. So basically, instead of paying this year, we had a $660. We only paid $660 for our bank fees. So we went from $45,000 in 2020, $60,000 in 2021, to about $660 that we paid out of our pocket for 2022. And that's because interest rates have escalated. Retiree healthcare fund balance. This is for the retiree healthcare. Beginning balance was $6 million. We appreciated $825,000. We contributed $300,000. Our end of year balance was $5,497,000. Expenses were $36,000, and income was $105,000. Fireman.
Maybe it's that market depreciation? Because it looks like we went down about 500,000 net. So I think that appreciation.
Yeah, that could have been,
Yep.
yeah, I got these from Nikki, so I'll check that out.
Yeah.
I can look at that.
Yeah, might take a look at that, because I think that's, because I don't think we had a net gain for 2022.
Okay. Fireman pension fund balances, beginning balance was $18 million, market depreciation was $3,612,000. Contributions, employee and employee were $1,007,000. End of year balance was $15,081,94. Expenses were $1,008,000, and our income was $647,000. Employee pension fund balances, I think you're right, Mr. Supervisor, it looks like that may have not gotten altered, but that looks like a
It was
depreciation.
probably a copy and paste, which
Yep,
we're all guilty of.
Beginning balance for employee pension fund was $17,000,000. Market depreciation was $2,459,000. Contributions of $1,086,000. End of year balance was $14,362. Expenses $1,927,000, and income of $247. So, we didn't have a really good year, so you can see that our beginning balance and ending balances, this is the first time they depreciated. Since I've been keeping the books, hopefully we can look up and things will be getting better, especially with rates coming up.
Mr. Temino, did
Yes.
they fix that last figure?
Yeah, I saw that as well,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Cable stations, so basically in 2022, as you know, we launched the new YouTube channel. The name of the channel is the Charter Township of Harrison. The channel is now streaming Board of Directors, Planning Commission, and ZBA meetings. The YouTube channel will also provide access to special meetings and events when we tape them. If you visit the cable link on our website, you can actually subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once subscribed, you'll actually get notified when real-time streaming of any live meeting is going to be taking place. So it's been a really good tool, and it's very accurate and it's up to date almost immediately. I just want to go over a few accomplishments from the Treasurer's Office. The Treasurer's Office was open on Thursday, December 29th, over the 2022 Christmas holiday. Provide residents an opportunity to process year-end taxes and any other billing transactions. The Treasurer's Office actively advertises the special holiday hours on social media, cable, and the township website, and signage posted at the township entryways. Counter activity and traffic during the holiday, we had approximately 175 receipts, so we were pretty busy that day. People like to come in on that last day before the new year. The treasurer also implemented extended daily business hours. The day in some instances basically are the day prior to summer taxes and prior to winter taxes. So we stay open late to accommodate resident schedules, and we do get a lot of people that come as well. Loomis in January, so Loomis is our armored car service. In January 2021, the Treasurer's Office entered into a 2-year contract with Loomis, picking up bank deposits twice weekly. The armored courier service continues to work flawlessly. We are continuing to use Loomis along with their currency bags, which are half the cost of the currency bags that we used to purchase from other vendors, saving us about $500 a year. And just to let you know, that contract will be up next year, and it's an auto-renew, so we will just renew at the current rate. The Treasurer's Office implemented an additional annual amendments to the semi-annual tax bill. The new tax bill now utilizes a QR code, so the customers can actually scan the QR code and pay their tax bill on their mobile device, and it navigates them right to the payment portal. In June of '22, the Treasurer's Office moved all tax payment distribution payments to every tax entity from wire to ACH. I think you may have heard me talk about this at the Supervisor's State of the Township. Tax distributions were historically sent through wire transfers at a cost of $35 each. So the new ACH tax payment transfers is about $40 each, so plus less time. So we've been saving
40 cents, right?
Yes, 40 cents.
Yep.
Treasurer's Office continues to customize and expand the Treasury webpage to include relative department information. And we've also this year we also entered into a contract with a company called Auto Agent. basically prevent tax collection overpayments. It's zero cost for the township for the service. Auto agent automatically checks for duplicate tax payments from public data files, and eliminates duplicate escrow tax payments. Auto agent gathers duplicate payment data and stops the overpayment, eliminating manual service. So if anybody overpays on their taxes or pays double, we must return that. We cannot keep it like a water bill where we can actually add it to their account. Statutory, we must return that money to the taxpayer. So that's been very helpful. And again, this year we started proactively informing property owners of delinquent tax payments twice a year. Approximately 6% of property owners seem to be delinquent with tax payments, which equates to about 700 properties. Many property owners just forget to pay, misplace bills. Some are just lost in the mail. Some are snowbirds and don't get their bill. So twice a year we send a friendly reminder, and this reminder has paid off, and our collection rate on those delinquent bills has been about 20%. So looking into 2023 and 2024, we're going to continue to work with the Water and Sewer Department towards an e-lockbox option, which will eliminate the need for manually and costly lockbox fees. Once converted to an e-lockbox, paper checks being generated through banks will convert electronically. This will provide accurate and timely payments for our residents and eliminate daily banking errors caused by the manual lockbox. Also want to work with Water and Sewer to consolidate the water and sewer billing, residential and sprinkler bills onto one invoice. We want to continue to automate reconciliation and manual processes, develop a marketing campaign for residents to provide incentives to move to point and pay. Actually, we're working on that right now. I was able to get point and pay to foot the bill for about $500 worth of $50 either gift certificate or Amazon cards, and we're going to run a campaign to help have people sign up, and if they do, they go into a drawing to get one of these cards. So hopefully you'll see that within the next 2 or 3 months in the mail. We want to reduce the volume of paper checks generated, again, going to E. Although I think I had this on my report last year, the use of P cards. It's a really great program. Just haven't been able to get to the area yet, so I didn't want to lose a placeholder for it. And we want to continue utilizing bonding for future SCD and water projects when the amount of the project warrants it. So with the exception of the 2 corrections, I'd be looking for either questions or a motion to receive and file, and I will submit the corrections as well.
Make a motion to receive and file the 2022 annual treasurer's report.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt, support by Mr. Brado. Any discussion?
I have a question under number 9. Turns out it's on page 46 or page 8 of your packet. When you talked about the delinquent tax payments, and you said, with sending this extra letter, your rate of collection has been about 20%. What happens to that other 80% that don't pay?
What happens is they get penalized 1% per month. And then if they're delinquent by March 1st, they get turned over to the county. Unfortunately, we don't get that. We don't get that 1% if they go to the county. The county collects the fee. So it's better for me to get 20% of that money that might go to the county.
Gotcha.
So that was one of the reasons that I.
That makes sense.
Yeah, get a little bit rather than nothing.
But if you think the ultimate long-term, if someone doesn't pay, the treasurer, once we turn it over, the treasurer basically assumes that debt. And then, so let's just say you owe $1,000 to the various taxing entities. We turn it over to the treasurer's office, to the county treasurer. County gives us that $1,000 so we can disperse all the funding entities, the taxing entities, and then they, in essence, kind of assume that debt. If after 3 years you don't pay it, you lose your property. So they have that ability to go through that tax foreclosure process. And when you think about it, instead of having 26, 27 municipalities doing it, having one entity for the county, kind of, probably an economy of scale there, so.
Sure.
But I like the idea of trying to collect some of it, because, you know, some people are just not gonna pay, obviously, but, you know, some people just miss it and give them a chance to pay that.
They do,
Yeah.
and we do get the penalties, so.
And it's a service also,
Yep,
because
exactly.
clearly the longer it goes, the more interest they're accumulating.
It's amazing how many people call, you know, once we said, oh, we didn't know, we never got it, so we have a lot of people that, you know, we get a lot of feedback,
Yeah,
positive feedback.
It's a service, it really is, it's customer service, and it's great. There's a lot of those changes you've made in investing and in services, and, I'm certainly appreciative of the effort the treasurer's office has put forward to better serve our residents. Any other, discussion?
Well, just from a firefighters and employee pension perspective, I know there's a pension committee that manages this. I know we get a report once a year. Is there something that's gonna be generated by, when was this market depreciation recognized? Was there a?
It's a 1 year, snap, it's like a one moment snap in time, and that's not the way we look at our pension funds. You know, they're done on an actuarial assessment.
So, yeah, so as an example, let's say in a year we realize 20% interest. Let's say we went from 10,000 or 10 million to 12 million. The actuary, in order to minimize radical shifts in what we do, they smooth that or spread that out. So we don't actually recognize 20% interest in 1 year, we spread that out. So that similarly, when we have a bad year, such as this past year, it doesn't cause a radical change. So there's one way of looking at it in the sense that, like for our audit, it's exactly what the numbers were as of December 31st. But actuarial science and mathematics is done differently, and so it's amortized. Those gains and losses are amortized. It's, you know, I'm not in a position to say it's the, you know, good or bad, but it's the standard, right? And there are, these aren't, some of those actuarial decisions aren't, options. They're required by certain government accounting standards. So, I don't know if that answers the question, or.
Yeah, so just from a funding perspective, is looking at the numbers of what's our pension liability? This doesn't show it, right?
No, that's correct,
No,
right?
it's
So,
probably
Yeah,
around
this
$30
is-
million, like outstanding.
yeah, as a level of, I can give you, actually.
And I'm sorry, I could have asked this question before. but
No,
I
it's okay.
didn't
It's
realize
all right.
That's
So
fine.
we
Yeah,
just
this is
had a little.
snapshot.
Right. So we just had a little communication late last week. So as of 2021, I'm sorry, so as of 2020, our fire pension was at 58.3% funded. The employee pension was at 69.8% funded.
That was 2020?
As end of 2020. 2020 was a good year. 2021 was also a good year. That funding fire went up to 62.5. Employee pension was at 76.1. We only have the fire pension valuation report so far for end of 2022, but they're, based on the losses that were recognized in the market, is down to 49.99, so call it 50% funded. So, you know, clearly a bad year such as last year, you know, has a big impact, but it's kind of a long-term, you know, you have to kind of look at it in the long term. So unfortunately, there's a level, like even how much risk we can assume in the fund, even those things are dictated by state acts saying what you can invest in, what you cannot, what percent you can invest, so forth.
And that's based off of the percentage of funding? Those decisions
Well,
are driven by that, or?
no, meaning like the state, like we can't say, well, let's put all of our, 100% of our pension funds in Ford stock. That's just not allowed, right? So the state dictates a certain amount of diversification.
It's more so determined by whether or not you have an open pension system or a closed pension system. That would be the real limiter between what you can invest and what you could not
Correct,
invest in.
because that's another one. So the limitations for investing kind of look at, a pension system is eternal, in theory, that's the concept. So there should be new members coming in, there should be members retiring, there should be obviously, unfortunately, a loss of pensioners at some point, right? But if you say I'm closing a pension system so that nobody else joins the pension system, well, then you really can't assume that there'll be investments and future members. So now the state starts to say, well, now you've got to tighten up what you can and can't do because you can't take risk with that money. You can't be as risky because there isn't future money coming in. So there's a lot of our pension systems. We have our own pension systems. It's nice in some respects, but there's a lot of cost spent for legal advice and certainly on actuarial work. And then obviously there's decisions, tactical decisions made on investing.
Yeah, I know that we had like I don't wanna call it a makeup plan, where we were putting funds in there with a basically a 13% drop. Our calculations all gonna change, or are we
Nope.
staying the course based on
Yeah,
what we
good
have in
question.
front of us?
Yep, so there's some things we control, some things we don't control. Obviously, we can't control the market. We can do our best to try to move money when we think it's prudent and try to make, as I say, what our advisor might say, tactical decisions, but ultimately, this past year was one of the rarest years where there was, like, usually something does good. And if you could say, man, I wish you'd go back in time, I would have moved all my money into that. This past year had nothing that was good. It was really a fluke. But the decisions that we do make are assumption decisions. So, for example, when we talk about what percent funded we are, that's one of the assumptions we make is what interest rate are we going to get? So if I say, for example, well, I'm anticipating we're gonna make 8% interest. If I went to the actuary and said, assume an 8% rate of return, we'd probably be 65% funded. Inversely, if I said assume a 4% rate of return, we might be only 35% funded, right? So there are assumptions that are up to us, and the more conservative that you are in those assumptions, the more you have to contribute to be solvent, but the quicker you get to a stable pension plan that can truly honor its commitments. So I think what you're speaking about was, I think, a previous report that probably prior to 2020, I believe, where we talked about making some of those changes. The pension committee ultimately has that decision to make, but when they make an assumption decision, it could result in us having to contribute hundreds of thousands of more dollars each year just to meet those obligations. So I am comfortable in saying that both our fire and our employee pension system has conservative assumptions that force us to contribute a greater amount. In my time as supervisor, we've only made changes to the assumptions that have increased our contribution levels. So, looking at last year, 76% funded, that's the highest we've been funded since I've been supervisor. So we're moving in that right direction. But, and we also made changes to benefits, not necessarily for existing employees, but primarily for new employees coming in. So as that changes, that future burden becomes less because the benefits are more practical or realistic.
Okay.
So. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion to receive and file the 2022 Annual Treasurers Report by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next, F2.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This agenda item is to get approval for school tax collection. I just want to give you a little bit of background. It was school tax collection and some of the things that are taking place this year with the tax collection. I've been working on this pretty diligently for the last 2 months. And I want to just share this information with you. So the Treasurer's Office has been working with other local treasurers and Paul Bodia from the MISD to standardize the amount charged to the schools for processing and collecting school property taxes. Part of this effort includes investing tax revenue into higher deal securities or accounts where the schools can realize the interest earned on these accounts. I have prepared a custom tax collection contract between Harrison Township and the schools, which outlines how bank fees and charges and accrued interest will be handled and distributed. The new amount charged per parcel is $4. That's versus the 2.58, which was charged last year. I have received signed contracts from Lance Cruz, MCCC, MISD, to collect the taxes in 2023. So just to summarize real quick, with interest rates on the rise, the school sort of came to a lot of the treasurers and they said, what we'd like to do is we'd like you guys to invest for us and we want that money. And the treasurers came back and says, well, we're really giving you a deal at $2.50 or $2.58 or some we're charging $3. But they said, what we want to do is we really want to charge you what our cost is to, send out bills, collect the bills, run our payment systems, manage the bank accounts, and all the fees as well. So once we outlined everything, we determined and agreed to a $4 per parcel payment. That is, we went from $2.58 to $4. That's what they are going to pay us for collecting for each parcel. We have around 12,000 parcels. So the difference, back in 2022 at $2.58, we got paid $30,960. This year, we're gonna get approximately $48,000, a difference of $17,000 for the year. And for those of you, I passed this new sheet out only because some numbers changed in the last day. So what I want to talk about is, what I did is, on 4/1, the treasurer's office, so what I did is I split off the tax account into an interest-bearing account. Our current account was making just over 0%. It was being paid for by bank earned credits. And we were not dispersing any interest because we weren't really getting any interest. But the township was handling the burden of the cost of the account. By moving to a interest-bearing tax account, the bank was able to, initially, they told us 1.85. I've been working with the bank diligently, and I was actually told over the weekend that meetings with our point person at the bank, that they were giving us actually, because of our long relationship, sort of the prime rate for municipalities. So actually, the 1.85 on an interest-bearing tax account is now 2.60, and I just got that news yesterday. So I had to change some figures here on the sheet, so what you have in your packet is just a little bit off.
But that's not a static number, that could change next month.
That is correct.
It's just the world you know it today.
That is correct. So, and the whole thing is, these contracts with the school are entered into annually. So if that goes up, they might get a little bit more interest. If it goes down, they're gonna get less interest. What I did is I built into our contract that says, if that interest rate goes down during the year that we have signed the contract, where it does not cover the cost of fees for the account, that the school will reimburse us for that. So I've sort of got our butt covered, and it's gonna be a win-win for us. So basically, if we look at the average daily balance on that account is 1.8 million. And maintenance fees, lockbox fees were fully funded, as I said before, by the township. Moving to the tax account to interest bearing provides a few advantages. The account maintenance fees will be solely funded by the earned interest. So that means the interest that we're going to make in a year, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the cost of that carved out tax account, and that'll come out of the interest that is earned during that period. The township will no longer subsidize tax bank maintenance fees and lockbox fees. After subtracting the bank fees, any leftover interest will be distributed to the schools and other tax entities on a prorated basis. Again, 2.6% is the interest that we're going to be earning on this account. Based on the 1.8 million average monthly balance and 2.60, our annual interest on that account should be right around $46,000. actually asked the bank to do a study, and that's what they came up with at a 2.60 rate. Basically, we were paying around $19,000 annually out of earned bank credits for that account that we are not getting reimbursed for. The bank, as part of the contract, is also going to pay us separately for any point-and-pay transactions. So if you recall, point-and-pay transactions, we subsidize that, the township does, at the cost of 50 cents per transaction. I didn't want to eat that, and I felt that that should be paid for by the schools as well, or the tax entities. So that will come out of the interest as well. So basically, we have, if we look at a point in time, we're going to make $46,000 in interest next year. All the fees will be pulled out of the account to manage that account. Any service charges to point and pay will be pulled out of that. The leftover dollars will be split at a prorated basis back to all the tax entities. So looking at that, just to give you sort of a bottom line view, this would be on the second page. Annual bank credits that we received on that account or actually that we paid was about $19,000. We're not gonna be paying that anymore, so that, we need to look at that as, it's really not a source of income, but it's an offset. Annual increase in the collection rate is $17,000, $17,040. The estimated prorated interest tax accounts, $27,000, that's approximately half of the 46. So total annual revenue and income from collecting taxes is going to be around $63,000 for the year. So basically, out of the $27,000 that'll be left over from the interest, after we pay all the fees, the schools will get approximately 53% of that. The other tax entities will get the remaining 47%. So I just wanted to let the board know that I made these changes to this account. The other thing that this does by carving this account out, it does also offer us an opportunity to move to a different lending institution. And I think that's one of the reasons why the interest was actually bumped last week, because I was looking at other banks to move this money to. And I shared this with our bank and our representative, which she took back to her leadership. So they came back with a higher rate, and so I think it was a win-win.
Excellent. Now, we are one of those taxing entities, right?
We are. So the library would be state equalized tax. That money actually will come back to us. We don't have to turn it into anyone. Macomb County, DIA, zoo, police, fire.
HCMA.
Yes.
So
Any entity,
Yep.
right, so what's gonna happen is, so after we get our interest, 46,000, we take out the $19,000 in fees, which will be paid by bank credits that we're earning on our general fund account. So, and which really go to waste. Bank credits, just so you know, bank credits at the end of the year,
Use it or lose it.
that's right. If you have a balance of bank credits, they just sort of go by the wayside. So we'll be able to pay, we have plenty of bank credits to cover this, but we will reimburse ourselves with cash. So basically, bank credits will pay our portion, but we will get reimbursed by cash out of the interest rates. And then the balance will be prorated and spread across all the other tax entities.
So this is a way to collect those fees from the taxing entities, because we're saying, hey, we're giving you the interest, but here's our fees. But since we have, it sounds like a surplus of those credits, we're kind of keeping that money. We're not losing these.
That's correct.
credits.
We're still going to have a balance of bank credits at the end of the year.
And when all is said and done, what I see with this is you figured out a way to be more efficient with these funds. When all is done, it's my money, right? It's as a resident, right? So if it saves the school some, or it saves the township some, right? I gotta pay either one of them. So this seems to me to be not only a win for us and for the treasurer's office, but it's a win for the taxpayer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and I don't blame the schools, you know, the schools are looking to get as much money as they can,
Sure.
I get it.
Yeah.
You know, but the whole thing is, we just have to make sure that, you know, there's more maintenance in managing this. So we don't wanna get where this is going to be a primary maintenance function, cause then it becomes too burdensome and it's not worth making the, you know, 15 or 20,000 in interest. So right now it's manageable. It needs to be looked at monthly, but it's something that we do anyway. So to me, it just seemed like it was the proper thing to do. We can make some additional cash through interest rates, and the schools can as well. So.
And I
That's
also
the way-
think that, you know, this is the flavor of the month, and I think that the clerk was alluding to that. If and when interest rates drop, this probably isn't the best way to approach it, or may not be, and we have to look at it that time. But, better to move instead of just say, well, eventually this isn't gonna work. Work, well,
No,
it
you're
can't.
exactly right, and that's part of that maintenance, right? Because once it comes to a point where that interest rate, if it gets too low, and it doesn't make any sense, and now if the fees are costing more than the interest we're accruing, maybe we need to look at going back to a different, you know, something different.
Mhm.
I still think we're probably 2 or 3 years away from that, so we have some time to, you know, to manage it as we go forward.
Mhm.
They may go up a little bit more before they come down, so.
Sure. And so there is a need, for us to pass a motion for the collection amount. But it sounds like there's also some other changes that are occurring behind the scenes, and I'm not really clear if that's, I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't know if that's a board decision or the treasurer's decision.
Usually the treasurer, makes those calls.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I just didn't know if there was, you know, where that line was. So I know we
Yeah,
have,
and that's the way I read the statute, and I believe that, you know, the whole thing is I want full transparency. I
Sure.
wanna know what you're doing. I want you to know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I want you to see and know where that additional income's gonna be coming in as well,
Sure.
because everything I do, you know, comes into general fund for the most part. And every thousand, gets added to that, you know, base, general fund account.
sure.
Make a motion to authorize the treasurer to enter into a contract agreement with L'Anse Creuse Public Schools, Macomb Intermediate School District, and Macomb Community College to collect the 2023 summer property taxes with service cost charge, L'Anse Creuse School District, of $4 per parcel.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. We had some discussion, but, is there further discussion?
Well, I'm happy that he's gone from 30,000 to 48,000. We could barely even get the money before. So,
Right. Yeah, well, you gotta
This is
ask for
awesome.
it sometimes.
yeah, sometimes you have to ask for it. This is awesome.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion?
I just want to make one more comment regarding changes to accounts. I am working and finalizing some changes to our general fund account. I don't have all the final figures, but I do want to bring that to the board as well, because I think you'll be quite happy looking at the outcome. But unfortunately, that's going to have to be for a subsequent meeting in May, by the time I get the information together.
Fair enough. Any other discussion?
Just, on these contracts, and I don't know if these are state contracts that were signed, but there's some really good language in it here for the township. Essentially, if we don't make enough money, we are going to pay you whatever it is we agreed to. And, we indemnify you for any legal action. So I like that kind of language when someone's saying they're gonna protect us, so.
So, Mr. Beckins, it's funny you said about that, and I consoled with Mr. Huth on that, because as we were talking about these contracts, that's one of the things that I was concerned about, because I understand, you know, interest rates are up and the schools want to make some additional money, and so do we, so I get that. But on the other hand, you know, rates can fall as fast as they go up. So after bringing that up to Mr. Huth and my thoughts on that and putting something into the contract saying, look, if interest doesn't cover it, you are going to be responsible for it. MISD, Macomb County College, and L'Anse Creuse. And mine was the only contract of all the local Macomb County municipalities that had that in there. And quite frankly, I was surprised that they signed that.
Well,
They did.
I'm scratching my head too, so, hurry up and sign it.
But I also think these are ultimately one-year contracts, right?
They're one-year contracts,
So
absolutely,
we
absolutely.
don't really anticipate that by December 31st, we're in a negative interest world, right? I mean,
No,
it's, you know,
but here's the whole thing, so if we sign that contract in 2025, and during that year rates fall 2%, that could be a vulnerable year, and the whole thing is, this covers our butt during that year.
sure, absolutely, yeah. This is, in fairness, this is a revenue stream for the funding entities that didn't exist, so it's an opportunity for them, but it's an opportunity for us, and I applaud that, forethought to, kind of cover ourselves, so that's good.
Nice work.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item G1 from the clerk's office.
Yes, at our March 13th, 2023 meeting, ordinance number 308.7 was introduced to amend Article 6, Section 6.01B10 of the Charter Township of Harrison zoning ordinance to amend the waterfront fencing requirements. It does include the changes that the board discussed at the previous meeting. If it is adopted, it will become effective 7 days after publication of that, so probably a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay. Any discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Adopt it.
Motion
Support.
by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Tominella. Discussion? I know we talked about this in a little more detail previously, and so this is really kind of just that second step, but, if there's, no discussion and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominella?
Yes.
Mr. Backen?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Prokowski?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item H1 regarding our vehicle fleet. Board members, we are continuing our relationship with Enterprise for our fleet management. We placed an order for 6 new vehicles for 2023, actually 2022 to 2023. Chevrolet fulfilled 3 of the orders, 1 Chevy Traverse, 2 Chevy Silverado pickups. After reviewing our vehicle needs, we would like to repurpose 3 vehicles and sell 1 vehicle. Enterprise provided vehicle valuations based on recent comparable sales. That's important because if vehicles go from water and sewer to general fund or back, we have to buy and sell internally. The 2 2017 GMC 1500 4x4 pickups will be transferred from the water and sewer department to our maintenance department. That's a cost of $18,000 each, so that's a total of $36,000. But we're trying something different for our on-call vehicle, so we're looking at taking one of the 2017 Chevy Equinoxes from that we used in assessing, so ultimately general fund, to the water and sewer department at a cost of $17,500. So that makes the net amount that the general fund owes the water and sewer fund a total of $18,500. In addition, we have one 2020 Chevy Silverado 1500 4x4 cab, extended cab with 50,000 miles that we would like to send to Enterprise for sale. So I am requesting authorization to transfer 2 trucks from water and sewer to general fund and transfer 1 Equinox from general fund to water and sewer at a net cost of, I've got 17.5, is it 7? It was 18.5, wasn't it? It is 18.5, that's a typo. As well as sell 1 2020 Chevy Silverado 1500 4x4 extended cab. So the actual net cost, I apologize, I got my math backwards, it's $18,500. Discussion or a motion?
So, do we know what the Equinox is worth?
They've estimated that 17.5.
And what is this 50,000 mile pickup truck worth?
We don't know that. I should say, it's ultimately, I mean, I should back up. I don't know that answer. We can ask for that answer, but ultimately, the goal of this is to turn these vehicles over. So that would be an example of one of the first ones that we bought in this process, and now to liquidate it to see how we do. So ultimately, Enterprise is gonna sell it for, at an auction for what they believe to be the highest, best price.
If our prior experience, informs it at all, it's going to be within a couple % of what we paid for it.
Yeah, good. If you recall, we liquidated 2015s in 2020, and we made money on one of them. I think, and we lost hundreds of dollars. Net result was 2 trucks we drove for 5 years for a few $100s.
Yeah, I know the program, I'm
Yeah.
pretty familiar with it, and they do tell you the sweet spots for selling things. I guess the only thing that I wonder is, I get this as a on-call vehicle,
Mhm.
but I have to believe that when we get done with this thing in the water and sewer department in 2 years, it's not gonna be worth $5,000. So the only thing I'm wondering, just, throwing out loud, is water and sewer, this would probably be, is this their first Equinox? Is this their first anything other than a pickup truck? Or have
Other
they
than like a
gone,
box truck.
Yeah, that's
like
a fair
service
statement.
type vehicles?
Right, but to your point, this is specifically a suggestion that came from our water and sewer management to say, look, that 50,000 miles on a pickup doesn't necessarily look the same as 50,000 miles on an Equinox, but the fuel and operating costs associated with that are also reflective. So in essence, what we're saying is every week, somebody is on call, and they're provided a township vehicle that they respond with. So this would be, they're driving it, so you're the water and sewer guy that's on call this week. For 5 days, you're driving to and from work with a township-provided vehicle with township-provided fuel card. So, but in exchange, you're also on call. This is a part of your assignment. So, you gotta answer your phone at 3 AM when someone says there's water in the street. So what we looked at was, that Equinox can carry, in essence, the minimum tools that they would need to respond. But what we find is that, let's just say call number 1 comes in this week, and you get there and it's really just a full ditch and there really is no water main break, but somebody's, draining their pool, but the neighbor doesn't know it, right? Okay, you drove all the way there, you saw it, there's no problem, you drive back home. Call number 2, you drive to the site, you get there and you realize, oh, those are water main break. Now there's a process that we have to go through for emergency staking. We have to literally call several other employees to respond, because we can't just have one guy fixing a water main break. So it isn't at that point as if time is of the essence and he has to have, a pickup truck that's got every piece of equipment that he could need. The reality is if on that call there is a water main break, we begin a process, but it's in the township and our water and sewer building's in the township, so I can just as easily drive that Equinox to the shop and respond, whether it's maybe I don't even need my pickup. Maybe I need to go load up the backhoe and get that there so it's ready when you respond. So this is, I guess what I would say, an experiment, but it was kind of brought to us by the management saying, long term, we would be looking at a 2023 Equinox or equivalent. Since we already have a 2017 and it's got really low miles, crazy low miles, because the assessing department just travels within the township. And, why not put it into service, try it out, do this for a year, see if it works or not. If it does, then we might say a year from now, let's get rid of that Equinox while it still has a decent resale and replace it with a like vehicle that would be a little more fuel efficient and, easier to respond with.
And they said, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna, in asking some of the same questions of that team, we said, most of their calls, 90% of them are not novel. There are things they've heard before, so they know if they have to stop and get a truck, so they don't even, even if they have the on-call truck, they're swapping trucks to get something different because of
Or it could
whatever
be,
they need, or they need a tool that's specific to that job.
Right.
That's not normally in the truck, or, so it's.
and it could be SCADA related. Hey, there's something tripped on a pump. Well, you drive there and you're like, oh, that's pump number 7. Sometimes the breaker goes, we have to reset it. Doesn't really matter what vehicle I got at that point. I need a key to open the panel and do whatever I need to do. So, similar to you, we had some of these same questions, kind of kicked the tires. And actually, we talked about this while we did the interviews, because between interviews, we kind of had, management and leadership there. And this was a suggestion they brought. So thought, well, we'll try it for a year and see if it saves us fuel, or maybe the guys, it was brought up to the staff. They were supportive of the idea as well. So, and again, like to your point, this isn't necessary. This is the vehicle I drive to and from work, right? If I get called, on call in the middle of the night and I come there, I may take that vehicle back, so it's not as if I'm jumping out of the hole covered in mud flopping down in that Equinox, if that makes sense.
So what did Enterprise say about this idea?
That's not, they don't care, so that's not, that
So
wasn't
if we
on
put
it.
another 30,000 miles on this Equinox, I don't know where everybody lives, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if it's 20,000 miles next year, is that Equinox worth
They,
$6,000? You know what I'm saying?
So
Like,
they
have we
said-
done the sense check with
so
that?
what they said is that the trucks hold value more when they have lower mileage than the high mileage. And we already own these Equinoxes outside of the enterprise system.
Oh, they're not,
They're not,
Enter-
yeah.
oh,
We purchased these outright.
Okay, I'm
So they're
sorry.
not, yeah, so
Okay.
they're saying to us, you can do whatever you want with them. If you wanna keep them, keep them. If you wanna give them to us, we'll sell them for you.
so a year from now, if someone looks at this and says you've ruined this car, whatever, we probably won't do it again.
Yeah,
And
this
if it
vehicle
works
is
out-
100% cash
Okay,
ours.
I apologize.
No, no, it's okay.
But, so, this is, this is the time we can kinda do this experiment to see if it makes sense for our operations. And then we can say, okay, what's a fuel-efficient car that does hold its value? We're acknowledging that this is better on gas than a full-size pickup, and it isn't, we have this mentality that we need to give that on-call guy a full-size pickup, and after kicking the tires, we kinda think we don't need that, so this is that trial.
Sounds like
And
it's a
then,
good
and then the
trial.
next step, if we say like we need fuel efficient, you talk to Enterprise and they say, yeah, buy a Ford Fiesta, it's the best
Right,
thing,
who knows what
whatever.
that, yeah, but we would now be, maybe we do this for a year and there's a couple times when this front-wheel drive is a problem, so maybe we say, well, let's get a fuel-efficient vehicle, might be all-wheel drive, but it's four-cylinder, good on gas or whatever.
Okay.
So this is kinda that experiment, I guess.
All right, I guess I should have read that. a
No,
little
no, no, it's okay, no, you didn't, those are good questions, right? Like, this, we're still learning with this enterprise, the whole, like, we'll see with this 2020. That's the first vehicle that we will have purchased from Enterprise and returned to them to see what that resale is.
Okay.
And again, I'm anticipating good results, but, we'll find out.
If it doesn't sell for enough, just take all the chips out of it, because there's not chips.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I have a question. So I'm just not following the math, because you started initially saying that you wanted to get 6 vehicles from them, and then you say they are fulfilling 3.
They have fulfilled 3. So they came to us and said, we're not gonna build you 6, we'll only give you 3.
Right, so did we buy those 3 already?
Yeah.
Okay, and we voted on that before?
Yep,
Okay.
when I knew they were coming in, I brought to the board
Okay,
permission to authorize the 3 full-timers to purchase up to those 3.
okay. And so right now, we're talking about the other 3 that they couldn't give us new vehicles. We decided just to do the old swapperoo.
Well, what we're saying is we just injected 3 new vehicles into this fleet, right? So let's just say, I don't know, let's say we had 15 vehicles yesterday. Well, now we have 18. So our original concept would be, when we gain 3, we're gonna liquidate 3. But the previous cycle and this cycle, we've taken a couple of those vehicles strategically and moved them into our maintenance department. So if you recall, we just liquidated a van and a old pickup, at Motor City auction. Maybe we got $40-some for those 2 vehicles. Those were, it was like a 1998 pickup. I mean, it was the floorboards were rotten. So we've taken some vehicles out of our maintenance fleet. So 2 of these vehicles that we're kind of moving down, we're saying, okay, we'll give
I
those to
follow you.
maintenance. And the 1 Equinox, we're gonna shove,
thank
sideways.
you.
So, all right, so, any other discussion, questions?
So if we would've gotten the 6 new vehicles, then everything that we're repurposing, we would've sold through Enterprise.
There would be
correct?
more vehicles that would be going back to Enterprise for auction.
So,
The theory is, and like, we're meeting soon with Enterprise, Dave and I are, and we're gonna look at, okay, here's your fleet, here's what you need, wow, these vehicles are really selling well, or, the deals aren't so good right now. In the past, our My Deal pricing, MI deal, is it's a pre-established price, so My Deal is a statewide type thing where they negotiate all these prices, so that every municipality isn't asking GM for a quote on a Chevy pickup. GM says, this is the price, this is the deal we're gonna offer you. When times were a little bit more competitive, they were giving us a better deal. As the market has changed, where we might not necessarily get as good of a deal, so again, this is it's kind of like dollar cost averaging when you invest. You don't put in $1 million all at once, it's better to put in 10 grand, multiple times to spread out what happens. So sometimes this is gonna win, sometimes it's gonna lose. So we will, based on our conversation with our enterprise representative, be coming back with some recommendation for this next year cycle. But we have to do something like in the next 60 days. We may not even get the vehicle for upwards of a year. So,
So the other three vehicles, then, they just basically told us that they're not gonna be able to provide those.
yeah, GM just said we're only fulfilling, so,
I just
so,
wanna make sure we don't repurpose these, and then all of a sudden they call us up 2 months later and say, oh, guess what, we have 3 more trucks. for you."
right, right.
So I
Yeah,
just wanna-
part of that was, we looked at, I guess I wanna be cautious here, but like, in essence, if we're really getting a good deal, and the deal we get allows us to drive a vehicle for upwards of 5 years and then sell it for our same price.
Right.
Well, every vehicle they're willing to give us at a discount is almost like a lottery, like, why not have? So the idea behind Enterprise was your fleet is always fresh, it's always under warranty, you might not even have to pay to replace tires, because you may be, just like a lease concept.
Sure.
And with our discount and the tax advantages, we can really, in essence, just maintain our fleet with always new vehicles, at a level cost.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, so I'll be looking for a motion if there's no discussion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
I'll support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. We had some discussion, is there any further? And as I noted, the net cost is 18.5, I think I had that backwards, so, but I think that's clear. All right, seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is public comments. We'll open the floor for public comments. They can be about any subject you wish. We ask that you try to limit those comments to 5 minutes in length.
William Bardell, 26-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door, clean up, fix up, people helping people. I just wanted to remind everyone, check out Save Lake St. Clair, Facebook. Press follow, stay up to date on everything that's going on. And everybody enjoy the good weather. Well, it's going to be here probably a couple weeks, get a little bit of rain, and stay safe, keep your feet dry, drink plenty of water. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Battanti, a 20-year resident of the township. I mainly came here tonight to thank the board for their service to the community. I know the residents truly appreciate it, and I can tell you from experience that you probably don't hear that too often. Thank you very much. In particular, and it's been mentioned by Mr. Verkest, I'd like to recognize Treasurer Tominello. I've seen the effort that's been put in to improve the processes as a resident in the way I make my payments, much more efficient. And then the efforts to reduce transactional expense, very smart, and to take advantage of the current interest rate environment. It's what we expect from a treasurer, and you're certainly doing that, and I want to tell you that we appreciate it. So keep up the good work, all of you. You've asked good questions, and I think that benefits the entire community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sounds like a former banker to me.
Yeah. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Is there any board comment?
I guess I got a comment or a question, however you want to look at it. So, I think last week we got a lot of rain, and there was a lot of water everywhere. I don't know that the anticipation is we're gonna have water problems like we did before, but I do know that we sort of passed some type of, it was just a, so we could provide sandbags and sand. That, we don't have that in place anymore, is that correct?
Yeah, they're like in terms of an emergency state.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, we're not in that state, that's right.
Okay, and hopefully we don't experience that. I do know that the water was up on the river. It was pretty high, so, it goes, if that happens, we will
We still
take
have
action
it in
if
place.
we decide to.
Yep.
Yeah, I just was surprised how much water was, because it was extremely high. And I was getting calls from residents that they had water sitting in their yard, and
Yeah, so I think this spring, or this past, week or so, it's certainly not unheard of, but it's different than what we experienced when we had, just high water levels, right? So, the other issue, the biggest issue we have, I'll say, I don't wanna say a weakness, we've improved the ability to get water from the center of the township to the Beechwood detention, pond, and we've improved the ability to get water out of that pond. Where we're struggling now is getting that water from Beechwood to the Siesta pump station. Both in terms of literally flowing through the wooded parcel, that's probably primarily it, and then how the pump operates if and when it's operational at Siesta. Right now, we are waiting to hear on a grant, it was an 80-20 grant of about $1 million, to not only basically clean out the drain from Beechwood to Siesta, but also to add some additional detention in that area so that it would improve the ultimate quality of water that goes out to Lake St. Clair, and also give us more detention along the way, so that if we are pushing it into, basically across Metro Parkway south toward Jefferson, there'd be some additional storage there so that we could dewater the center township faster. It's a combination of public works, but also, some environmental benefits. So we can do that for less than $1 million, but the pie in the sky to maybe put some trails through there, to put some habitat for wildlife and improve the flow so that it improves water quality was kind of $1 million. If we get the grant, that would be awesome. If we don't get the grant, then we'll look at probably a more practical, lower cost option to improve the flow of water from Metro Parkway to Jefferson. And that's a county drain, and we know, our Public Works, Candace Miller's been very supportive of these things, so I'm sure if we go to her, we get support, but right now, we're just kind of waiting to see if we get a grant to do it.
Okay, and the Siesta station, that pump station, is there any changes needed to that? Is there? Would that be part of that 80-20 or?
It would.
Okay.
And if we don't get it, we would probably still make changes there, so.
Okay.
The problem is that, and it needs to be re-engineered, but the problem is that if we can't get water fast enough to a pump station that can move large volumes of water, the pump goes on, it cycles, and it goes off. It goes on, it cycles, it goes off. We want a scenario where we might be able to accumulate a larger quantity of water, have it cycle less, but for a longer period of time to improve the quality. Okay. So, but that would involve lowering the intake and making some other engineering changes. We talked about that previously.
Yep, that's why I'm inquiring. I know
Yeah.
That's probably, because I know the Beechwood pump station, both pumps were running.
Correct.
Full steam.
They were.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough when you get 2 inches of rain in 24 hours, no matter what.
Right, and the original design of that Beechwood pump station was to have not a dam there, which we're operating as a dam with sandbags, but to have a weir, so that if enough water flows into Beechwood, it'll just flow right over and continue to flow out to the lake. But we can't put that there because it would just sit, it just wouldn't work. So the next step in that improvement of our infrastructure is to really improve how water travels from Beechwood to Siesta.
Okay.
That is something I think we've got, whether we get a grant or not, we have the funds to be able to do it, but it sure would be nice to get a grant, so.
We live on the Conlet drain.
Yeah,
The backyard, and
Yep.
it's been waterfront property for us, cranes, ducks,
yeah,
wave runners,
sure,
canoes.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
name
and
it.
that's what it's designed for. It is a floodway, you know what I mean? It is designed to detain water.
It's awesome.
And I've got it next to my home too, and it was higher, recently than it's been in a long time, so.
Should we set a note to assessing to get Mr.
Yeah, waterfront, yeah, that's right, yep.
Waterfront?
Yep,
Yeah, waterfront
change
for a few weeks.
assessment
Yeah.
to waterfront, wildlife refuge.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first moved in, there were guys, so the Pettit Conlet used to be connected to the Clinton River. It's really separated, right? So it was flowing backward, and I remember like going out in my yard and there were guys casting, walking up and down, you're like, what's going on here? So but it had fish in it back then, so, anyways. Any other public comment or board comment? Hearing none, I'd be,
Just one comment real
Oh, sorry.
fast. I went by Waterfront Park and I noticed that sign that says, keep Harrison Township clean. I thought that was really, really nice. I just was kinda curious on whose idea that was or who put those up, cause that's the first time I've ever seen them. What other locations are they at in Harrison Township? Are there multiple signs or only just that one?
not sure. It's a good question.
I
Is
just
it the ones that
noticed it.
beautifications put up?
I think so.
Traditionally, they've had them, they've put them over out on the base fence where that pump house is, on North River Road, and then occasionally they'll put one right at Mariners Point.
Yeah, that was just surprised. I just had never seen one in that location before and I wasn't sure if that was something that was different. But it it's nice to see, so.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm as eager as I could be to reappoint the folks we have, because there's things like that just happen,
They
you
just
know?
happen,
Yeah. Sue Keen will come to us and say, hey, I've got this application for a grant, like, wow, this is great, you know, we're fortunate, we've got great,
Yeah,
great
they do a good
residents. All right, if there's no other discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Brado. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.
Thanks for subscribing.